Before we get started, I would like Ms. Johnson, if you wouldn't mind doing us a little wave. Ms. Johnson is going to be moderating the chat bar tonight. So if you have questions, you can type them in there as we go. And she'll respond to those on the fly. Those that we haven't answered by the end of the presentation, we will continue to respond to. And so please feel free to type in any questions that you have in the chat bar this evening. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. This is the March 4th Parent Town Hall virtual meeting. A couple of housekeeping items. If you would please keep your mic on mute this evening during the presentation so that all can hear. And again, please type any questions that you may have in the chat bar and we'll answer them in the order that they are received to the best of our ability. So many of you, I know many of you have joined in on previous town halls, so this may be a little bit of a repeat, but please bear with me while I catch everybody up to speed. Early January, the Board of Education asked me to put a committee together to look into offering a hybrid option to our schools, to our students, following the success of our remote learning up until this point. We made a presentation to the district board on February 1st, and that presentation entailed a hybrid learning plan for kindergarten through fifth grade, or pre-kindergarten through fifth grade, with a plan to roll out a middle school plan in the near future. And the board at that time set a target date for us of March 3rd. One of the primary objectives that we had in putting the plan together was to gain data from the parents. So we immediately issued a survey asking parents if they would be interested in sending their children to a hybrid plan as it was laid out in a previous town hall meeting. And what we found is that about 24% of the 936 students responded that they would be interested in hybrid. This presented a bit of a barrier for us because the class sizes ranged between 0 and 9, with most of our classes falling between 2 to 3 or 4 students. When in order to really make a hybrid plan work, we needed at least 11 to 13 without overloading one class or the other. There was a solution, there was an answer, and that would have been consolidation of classrooms, changing teachers, and in some cases, changing buildings. But it was very clear in our survey data, or form data, that 55% of the parents said that they would rather stay remote learning than actually have their teacher or building change. So now the 24% becomes 12%, and even a smaller number of students would have been involved in hybrid learning. So it just didn't make sense at this time to offer that pure hybrid plan that we had presented earlier in February. So we took that data and we presented at the board meeting, at a special board meeting on the 24th. And at that time, the recommendation was to stay 100% remote and then reevaluate April 6th and offer a hybrid learning program for our pre-K program starting Monday, March 8th, which is coming up. And then all staff would return on site March 15th unless they have an approved exemption. Sorry. Then the committee went back to the drawing board because we wanted to see if there was some option we could come up with in the few weeks that we had before April 6th for a hybrid learning plan for our middle school students, which is our most challenging schedule to work out. In the process of our brainstorming, we came up with what we think is a solution that will work K-8, April 6th, regardless the number of students who want to participate and regardless the number of teachers who are available to be working on site. And we're calling this plan the on-site online learning option. This is the definition. I'm going to try and summarize it here without reading the whole thing to you. In essence, the on-site online learning option will provide students in grades K through 8 who wish to attend school in person an opportunity to come to school and continue to learn online, just as they're doing at home remotely. But they will be here at school learning online through their computer. In those classrooms where the teachers are available and are at work here at the actual buildings, they would be assigned to those classrooms. So they would be in the classroom with their teacher, but they would still be interacting with them over the computer. For students whose teachers are not available to be on site, they would be placed in grade level clusters or common areas supervised by an adult an adult, and they would still continue to receive instruction from their same teacher, but it would again be online. So this just affords a on-school experience or an on-site experience for students to learn remotely rather than at home. In this way, we think like as I said, regardless of the number of students who are interested and regardless of the staff availability, we should be able to accommodate and offer this beginning April 6th for all students that would like to join in. The on-site online learning school environment is a little different than hybrid in its schedule because we do need to match the other remote learners who are still learning from home. So the school day is still 5 hours in length, 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours in the afternoon, still 7:50 to 10:20 and 12:20 to 2:50. The students who are participating in the on-site online learning option would be here in the morning session. So if they're currently a PM learner, they would be required to come in the morning and switch and work with the other AM remote learners that are currently assigned to that class roster. Students would need to bring their Chromebooks and their headsets and headphones with them each day and transport those back and forth to school. Students would participate in remote instruction 5 days a week in the afternoons, where they would continue to receive their specials and their supportive services. While students are on school grounds, they would be expected, just as in the hybrid plan, to follow all of IDPH's guidelines, including 6 feet of social distancing at all times, wearing masks at all times, hand sanitization, as well as frequent hand washing. Students will continue to use the Seesaw platform in Schoology as part of their learning management plan. At the end of each morning, students will be given a take-home lunch and the next day's breakfast. As I mentioned, when students are on site, we will have to follow all of the IDPH and CDC guidelines for student safety and staff safety, social distancing practices. I'll share a couple of photos in a few minutes, but we have, as I've shared in the past, we continue to keep our class capacity low by maintaining 6 feet of social distancing or 6 feet between each desk on all sides. In addition, we've added desk shields most recently, so that students will have a plastic shield in front of them during the time that they're in class. The expectation is that students face all one direction and they keep their masks on at all times. Students will be required to hand sanitize whenever they enter or exit the room, as well as encourage frequent hand washing using the restroom or if they've been outside. We will be modifying, we moved from a paper pencil system check COVID symptom screener to an online COVID symptom screener. And we're actually taking that up a notch by using a more advanced system screener called Crisis Go. Every student will have to have this form completed. It's an electronic form that you can download the app for. Parents would have to fill this symptom screener out, assuring that students do not have any COVID symptoms nor a temperature above 100.4 degrees before they leave the house. When they would arrive on campus, we will scan a QR code or an ID badge, and that will indicate to us that the student is green, good to go, gray, needs to complete the screener, or yellow, that there may be some symptoms, some indication that the parent indicated there may be a symptom that the student was sent to school with. We will continue on to on-site temperature screening as well. And we do have on-campus monitoring. We have rooms designated for students that develop symptoms while on campus, and they'll be held there with adult supervision until a parent or guardian can come pick them up. As I shared before, for those of you who've joined us before, we are almost complete with our HVAC ventilation upgrades. Those will be completed in every classroom. It's called a GPS NBI system. That is a long acronym for a needlepoint bipolar ionization system. It charges the air. Many of you may have experienced either purchased or been in a place where they use ionizers to electrostatic, put a little electrostatic into the air molecules that collects dust, and the dust is heavy, it makes the dust heavier and it falls to the ground. It is a system commonly used in hospitals throughout the country. I mentioned the desk shield. We'll have personal protective equipment for staff available, as well as students if they forget their mask on a given day. And then our buildings and grounds staff has the latest technology related to sanitizing our classrooms, spraying down the classrooms, and at the end of each day, sanitizing bathrooms between usage and all high touch areas throughout the day. I do want to mention something that has come about most recently. This is new information since the last time we met. We were hoping that the Department of Education at the federal level was going to grant a waiver on state testing this year, given the challenges we've had with remote learners being able to take tests on site. They did not grant those waivers at this time. So it was really up to the state. They did provide some flexibility to our state superintendent. Many area superintendents, including myself, signed a letter urging the state superintendent to take every measure possible to make state testing this spring as flexible as possible. That includes potentially reducing the number of test sessions required, as well as perhaps extending the deadline, the dates, the testing windows and so forth. So, however, if those flexibilities are not accessed or granted, if you will, there is the potential that we'll be taking access tests for students in grades 1 through 8 for our ELL students. Students will take the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, the IER, in grades 3 through 8, and the science assessment, which is grades 5th through 8th grade. One of my fellow superintendents made some calculations and noted that a 5th or 8th grader who is also an English language learner will be tested over 14 sessions this spring. And just all of us noted in the letter how valuable any in-person learning time might be that we might actually get. We don't want to spend it testing, but I do want to just make you aware that if your student comes on campus, they will be required to take these tests. We'll be inviting our other remote learners to come on campus and take a test as well, although we're not sure if the state will mandate that or if parents will have the option if they're still continuing remote learning. I know many of you have seen these photos before, but I do have a new slide in here I wanted to share. Again, we do have the hallways marked off to remind students to social distance while they're going to and from class. Our water systems have been capped off, just as a reminder that students, those are common touch areas that they will not be able to access while they're here on campus. Classrooms will be sanitized at the end of every day and then sealed. And students will be required to, and staff as well, required to use the hand sanitizing stations when they enter or exit the classroom each time. Here's the new shot I wanted to share. Again, very excited that through one of our teachers, Ms. Smith at Walsh School, one of her connections provided us 1,800 of these desk protectors or desk shields, if you will. You can see here we have a classroom set up with them. These can be set up in a number of different configurations. This is just one. But the idea here is to define a specific space. Students would still be required to wear a mask behind this shield, but it provides just another layer of protection for students. And these are optional for the teachers to use in the classrooms if they find that it may help define that personal space for students to learn in. Here's the previous shot showing a room without, but you can still see the spacing. There are tape marks on the floor to remind students to keep those desks where they are so that they are all facing in the same direction and just reducing the chance of any cross-infection. I'm going to jump now. The schedule has changed slightly with this on-site online plan than it did on our hybrid learning plan. So again, for students who will select the on-site online instruction model, They will attend from 7:50 until 10:20. They will receive their core instruction over the computer, just as they're doing now at home. And the teacher, in some cases, will be in the room, and in some cases, they will be at home remoting in with an adult supervisor in the room with the student. At 10:20, we'll dismiss the students, and they will receive that lunch and the breakfast for the next day. At 12:20, when they're back home, they would log back in, and they would receive their specials instruction for the day. That would take place every day of the week, 5 days a week. Our 6th through 8th graders, they have a little bit different structure to their schedule. They're receiving all of their subjects every day, taught by the content-specific teachers in each grade level. So they would come in at 7:50. They would get logged in their homeroom, and they would receive online instruction from their following their schedule, just as it is now. It would transition from one teacher to the next, just as it is happening at home. And the instruction would be delivered in that fashion every day of the week, 5 days a week. At 10:20, they would be dismissed. They would have an opportunity to take a lunch and a breakfast for the next day. At home at 12:20, they would be required to log back on and finish their normal schedule. So if they have math and language arts and PE in the morning, that would still continue to happen. It's just going to happen at school rather than at home if the parents choose the online on-site option. And then they would finish their day with perhaps social studies, science, and an art. That all will stay the same. So there'll be no changes to the 6th through 8th grade schedule. It's just a difference of where they're actually picking up their classes by location, here at school rather than at home. For those who would not prefer to stay remote, the schedule is not changing for those students. The only thing that those students might notice is that there may be 1 or 2 more students joining their AM class. If an AM student, if a PM remote student moves to AM on-site online learning. We're going to try and balance the classes as much as possible, depending upon parent demand for a particular grade level. We may have to shift some schedules around, but it is our goal to try to not have to interrupt anyone's schedule other than those who have elected on-site online learning. In this session, in remote, just as we're doing now in remote learning, the AM learners receive their core instruction, while the PM learners are getting their specials. And then in the afternoon, the PM learners receive their core instruction. The PM group receives their core instruction, and the AM group receives their special instruction. And again, we'll continue that for every day of the week, Monday through Friday. 6th through 8th grade remote learning also remains the same. Students will, they may notice that some of their peers have a different background, that they're in school rather than being at home, but otherwise there'll be no difference in the schedule for the student. They'll take their morning scheduled classes in the morning from 10:20 to 7:50 to 10:20, and their afternoon schedule from 12:20 to 2:50. We'll stop there and have an opportunity to look over at the chat bar. And Ms. Johnson, do we have some questions that need to visit?
We do, Dr. Whalen. I just started typing some responses we didn't get to yet. And here is the last that we have not responded to. The first question is, I apologize. It's, will we know what teachers are going to actually be at the school?
At this time, we do not know that. So when teachers are helping fill out the forms, or if you have questions, you can talk to the building principal and they may be able to identify that. We'll have a better handle on that later next week.
A comment, question, will taxpayers be refunded since they are not receiving the full education experience their children should get?
So the Board of Education is looking into a possible refund option next fall. The law requires that we complete this fiscal year and determine whether or not a surplus exists. The area of savings is really coming through our transportation fund, where there are no costs at this time. Uh, Even though we're remote, we are still paying all salaries and benefits, and that makes up about 80% of our total budget. So the refunding that's being considered would be considered out of any savings achieved in the transportation fund.
The next question, will we get an email with their class schedule?
Uh, Well, I'm not sure how the building principals will communicate with you if you are switching, if it'll be through Seesaw, or there'll be no change in class schedule for middle school. So I would say either an email or a Seesaw communication through the teacher would be the most likely method of communication.
A clarification question, in terms of schedules, do they start after April 6th? Meaning, do the students go back on April 6th?
Correct. Under this option, which we're presenting to the board on Monday, March 8th, if approved, students would come back on campus for the online on-site learning option on April 6th.
The next question is, will students wear their uniforms?
Yes, if they're coming on site, board policy would still require they wear a uniform.
The next question has to do with if an email, I believe, let me look back. Yes, same person. If an email is not received in terms of returning to school, might parents receive a letter as her children are in first and second grade?
So again, I believe, the principals will be communicating. If you respond to the election form, and we are going to post a link to that at the end of this survey in the chat so that you can click on it right away and complete the form. And we'll also be sending it out as a text blast and posting on our website. But if you complete that form and indicate that you want to be you want your students to be on site, online learning starting April 6th, one way or another, the building principal or teacher, someone will be in touch with you because to communicate the schedule and the plan.
The next question, are there any updates on graduation pics, how they might be managed, and the graduation ceremony?
I do believe the tentative date for graduation pictures, March 22nd, correct, Mrs. Malone?
That is correct. March 22nd, we do have a date. Due to COVID, before all the kids would share one cap and gown to take their pictures. Now they have to have their actual cap and gowns. So as soon as we get a solid date on when the parents can pick those up, we'll be able to schedule the times for the kids to come in and take their pictures.
In addition, Mrs. Malone and her team are working on several different options for a possible graduation ceremony, and more information. There's some planning that has to be done in coordination with some other sites, but when that information is settled, I'm sure Mrs. Malone and her team will be sending that information out as well.
Absolutely.
Another question, same parent, are the kids going to get the option to be sent to schools out of the district for in-person learning? Will the gifted and higher ability students get to test to higher grade levels to meet their needs?
I'm not sure I caught the first part of that question. So
I think the concern is that students, if they're not able to participate in in-person learning, how will the students who have higher abilities be able to have their needs met? Will they be testing into grades that are higher than their assigned grade?
We have a policy in place. If a child tests and a parent wants to request advanced placement, there's a process for that. I'm not sure if that's what they're asking. I'm not sure. There would not be an option to send students out to a different district because you have to reside within the boundaries, unless that student had an IEP, which indicated that they would be best served in a setting other than the district, like a private placement setting. If you have questions about testing, you can reach out to your building principal and they can walk you through the process.
Next question, will there be an in-person summer school?
Right now, as we're planning the summer school, there is going to be an in-person component as well as a remote component. We're trying to make the summer school as rigorous and robust as possible, using the many resources that we've been provided by the federal government through grant programming. So we're hoping to have a very robust and positive summer school experience starting in almost right after the school year ends, June 2nd.
Next question. The online on-site option means that kids will be in school, but the teachers will be teaching remotely, correct?
Yeah, I just want to be very clear in answering this so that all of the instruction will still be delivered in a remote online fashion. Some teachers will be on site teaching from their classrooms, and those students would be in that classroom with the teacher, but they would still be learning through the computer. The computer would be the medium. And then we will also have students who may be in a classroom and the teacher will be at home teaching remotely. There will be an adult supervisor in that room, but the teacher may not be in that classroom. So it'll be a mix of both options.
Next question. If we opt to send them back and our child doesn't handle it well, are we able to pull them out and switch back to learning from home?
Yes, you'll have that option.
Next question. When are we going to register for next school year?
Registration, we have an online program that typically opens up in May or early June, and we're still in that time frame.
Next question. Is there bus service?
Yes, there will be limited bus service. We're running what we're calling shuttle buses. There'll be 2 stops in Deep Summit and a stop at each school building. So you'll need to, if a child needs to get across town to a different school, they will at least need to get to their neighborhood school or to the 2 designated stops in Deep Summit.
Next question. What are the benefits of on-site learning?
Well, one benefit could be if a child is feeling like they are needing to be around their peers, even though that interaction will be very limited, you may want to choose that option. In some cases, I know we have many families out there who have multiple students trying to learn at different grade levels in different parts of the house, and that can be distracting for some of your students. So some of your students may benefit from being in a classroom that has only their grade level in it. Or 2 that come to mind.
Next question. Will the school let us know ahead of time? Will they send us a reminder letting us know we are going back to school?
Again, so if you select the online in-person learning, then yes, the building principal will be in touch with you as far as what, letting you know that the plan is moving forward, and that April 6th is the start date and any additional information that you may need.
Next question. Just to clarify, the children will be learning from their teacher in the same classroom via the computer. And I can certainly answer that as Dr. Whalen takes a drink. In some cases, yes, the teacher will be directly in the classroom and the child will be using the computer and that teacher will be teaching via the computer to the children. In other cases where the teacher is not in person, the students would be in a common room and their teacher would be delivering the instruction remotely through the computer.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Next question. Will parents be able to purchase uniforms?
Yes, building secretaries have placed the orders for the uniforms. You can reach out to your building and talk to one of the secretaries and they'll help you with that process.
This is a similar question to one asked. Will students be able to go one day, see if they like it, and if not, do remote?
So we are offering the option for students. I think I would ask them to give it more than one day. If the feeling is that they're not going to like it, then I would recommend not selecting the on-site, but I would have them give it a week. If they aren't happy or it's not working out for them after a week, then make the change. I think one day would not be enough time for them to really know if they're going to like it or not.
Will the remote learning schedule be the same as now?
Yes, it will. That will be unchanged.
The next question I can answer. The form will be placed into the chat at the end of this meeting, and then it will be posted so that all parents can partake in the form. Next question I can answer through a nurse's lens. If someone has had COVID, are they still allowed to go to school? So if someone has had COVID previously, several months ago, for example, certainly they're allowed to come to school. What we do expect, though, is that students who presently would have COVID would certainly need to quarantine and have a doctor note to release and or a negative COVID test to return to school. Next question, will students be able to ask their teachers questions via in-person other than through email?
So in those situations where the teacher is actually in the room with the students, there may be that opportunity. The teachers will set up class expectations for those on-site online learners. The challenge for all of us is being fair and equitable to both the learners who are on site and the attention that's given, as well as continuing to give the same level of attention to our remote learners.
Next question. Some parents, because of work schedules, have challenges with students coming to school for short periods of time and then picking them up 5 days a week. While it may be hard to manage, are some students able to come in 2 or 3 days in person and the rest remote?
So as the plan that we're recommending to the board stands today, it is 5 days a week. So it is a bit of an all or nothing option, commitment, if you will.
Should I contact my student's school to see if his teacher will be physically in class versus Zooming into the classroom?
Yes, contact your building principal for that information.
Next question, a little lighter. Do you know what time we get to pick? When will we get to pick to choose the time for pictures?
So I promise, I think I might be more excited than the 8th graders, but as soon as we get word that your cap and gowns are like physically being made right now. So I did get that much information today. So as soon as we get word that they're finished and they're delivered to us, then we will send information to all 8th grade parents to let them know what times you guys can come in to take your pictures.
The next question, certainly I can answer. What if parents don't agree with letting their kids go back to school? I would imagine that means in person. Then they can certainly choose their full remote option. The next question that has been put together by the nurses of response, if a student or teacher gets COVID, will they close the school or will we continue going? So it depends on close contact in terms of we will not close the entire school for a case of COVID. Rather, it is by close contact. So for example, in the younger grades where we may not be able to guarantee, for example, in pre-K, that those children were not in close contact with one another the entire day, we may indeed quarantine the entire classroom. But in most instances, we would not quarantine the entire grade, rather potentially a classroom or only those close contacts. Another question, will we need IDs? The answer to that is yes, we will need IDs, and that's something we'll be working either sending out or if it's a new student, gathering some immediately. Students will utilize IDs as they come in. There will be a QAR code, and that's how we will scan them in to ensure that they have their pre-screening COVID. Next question we've answered, but I want to be certain that the parent heard. Do students need uniforms? And the answer is yes. A next question, a new parent in Graves does wear uniforms unless the child is in pre-K. Pre-K does not wear uniforms. I think this is a clarification question. It says, wait, so the bus would only go on school stops or near schools?
That is correct. So we are essentially scaling back our transportation. There are some challenges with student transportation, including making sure everyone who boards the bus has completed their pre-screening option, and we just don't have enough staff to place them at the 20 or 30 bus stops that we would normally operate. So in this case, we'll have 2 stops in Deep Summit and we'll have a stop at each of the schools. So if you live in Bedford Park, for example, but you're attending Walsh School or Heritage Middle School, you would walk to Walker School, get on the bus, and the bus will take you across town to either Walsh or Heritage. Vice versa, if you live near Walsh, but you're attending Wharton or Heritage, you would walk to Walsh School, get on the bus, and that bus would take you to Wharton or Heritage or Walker if Walker was your destination.
Next question, students with IEP, will their schedule change? And the answer to that is the same as Dr. Whalen shared in the presentation. The only way schedules would change is if a student chose to come in person, and that's when they would receive their academic instruction if they were attending in person during the morning session, and if they were previously PM. So the majority of students' schedules will not change, including those with IEPs. The only exception is if a child determines they want to do the online on-site learning and they come in the morning to school, we would ensure their academic block was during that time. Ms. Balicki made mention about the format for the middle school in terms of the students in middle school being online with the teacher, the content area specialist delivering the instruction. However, they would be in the same room.
Michelle, I think what she's
Same room as
pointing out is that they'll only be with one teacher throughout that morning session, and that'll be their homeroom teacher. And their other teachers will be remoting in while they're there. The students will not be moving, nor will the teachers be moving from class to class. I think she was just clarifying that point.
Yes, that's what I was clarifying. Yes, so that parents know that.
Thank you, Dawn. If a student is in person and has to be quarantined, will they be allowed to access the remote platform? Absolutely. Absolutely. It says, wait, so the teachers will not be in the classroom for the in-person learning. Once again, to clarify, the majority of teachers will be in the classroom with the students, but they will be delivering the instruction via the online platform. Why is it that other local schools have gone back weeks ago and not District 104?
So if you've been following the positivity rate for the various communities, those communities' positivity rates dropped below 8% very early in the process and the pandemic and remained there. And our positivity rate continued to grow and only started dropping in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So that's a greater part of the decision to wait until we have. And then we polled our parents, and most recently, and only 24% of our pre-K through fifth grade learners elected the hybrid option, and without consolidation, of course, I mentioned. And so that made it impossible to provide a hybrid learning. So it's partially based on the high positivity rate as well as the demand from the community.
The next question, who will be supervising the kids?
So the classroom teacher will be the main supervisor, whether they're on-site or remote, but we will have additional staff in those rooms where the teachers are teaching remotely. Those staff may include some of our classified staff, such as our lunchroom monitors, our recess monitors, individuals who have worked with our children in the past will be in those spaces.
Will the children have backpacks with supplies they've been using at home and transporting them back and forth, or will they leave them at school?
So we'll be providing, we'd prefer that the children only come with a coat or hat if the weather requires it, and their Chromebook and their headphones. All of their supplies will be here on site, and they should keep their current set of supplies at home to work with when they're at home.
There's again, a bit of a lighthearted question. Do kindergartners get graduation pictures and ceremonies this year?
I would contact the K-4 principals and find out if they have taken any steps to put that together.
The next question is, when will parents find out if their children will have the same teacher as the one they have now?
So in this model, no student will change their teacher. The only thing that would change potentially is if they are in an afternoon group and the parents elect to send them to the morning on-site online learning, then they would be shifted to the morning group. As our goal, if there's in some cases we might have to do some class balancing and shift a few other AM students to PM, but our goal is to try and keep the least amount of disruption possible. So the teacher that just to be clear, the teacher you have now is the teacher your student would have on April 6th. It's just a matter of whether that teacher is particularly in that same classroom or they're remoting in over the computer from their homes.
This is a specific ask regarding Walker School, and I'm not certain we have this information readily available. The parent is asking how many teachers are at Walker Elementary, how many have exemptions for medical or other reasons, and will only do remote teaching. And finally, just wondering if it's your opinion that when the vaccine is available, do you believe there'll be more teachers on site?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't speculate as
Do
to what
you, do you want to give out specific numbers? Probably not at this time.
Not at this time. We're going through a bit of a reorganization or transition, but you would please contact your building principal end of next week. They should have a better idea of who will be on site. This survey is not going to close until March 19th. And then we give the principals time then to reach out to parents, let them know whether the teachers are going to be present. If in fact you select on-site online learning and you find out that your teacher's not going to be present, you can let the principal know that you would rather not send them. That's your prerogative. So there'll be some flexibility there and some opportunities to change your mind and vice versa. So.
The next two questions have just been answered in the last few moments about uniforms and books and bus stops. This next question, for a child to return to school after a COVID test, will it matter if it's a rapid test or PCR test result? No, there are no stipulations that state it has to be one or the other. It can be either. The next question, if COVID cases rise, would we go to school with way more safe procedures?
Well, the procedures that we have in place are in place regardless the positivity rate. However, if the positivity rate goes above 8%, then we would revert back to remote learning under the current ITPH guideline. I believe the current positivity rate for Summit that I saw today was around 4.6%, 4.7%.
The next question, if the kids can go back to in-person learning, why can't the teachers teach in person?
So there are a number of reasons that a teacher may not be able to return to in-person learning. Childcare, personal health conditions. So those are all things that the board has to take into consideration when reopening school.
The next question, will students go full day or half day? As a reminder, the students who attend the on-site in-person, what are we calling it? On-site online learning option, they will come to school between 7:50 and 10:20 daily. The next question, is there a bus for Bridgeview Gardens? Does one go all the way out to the gardens?
No, walking to Walker School would be the closest stop.
Next question, will we be offering COVID testing? And the answer to that is not at this time. The next question, if a student has COVID, but it's not active yet, they don't know they have it until later, but they've already infected the students. Will we be going with extras? Oh, sanitizing. Absolutely. So as Dr. Whalen mentioned, We do recognize that there's always risk involved, given that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I'll turn it back over to Dr. Whalen to share one more time regarding the air filtration and the cleaning.
Thanks, Ms. Johnson. So the board has invested several $100,000 in grant funding to upgrade all of our classroom HVAC heating and ventilation equipment. We've installed what is called the needle point bipolar ionization filter. This filter electrocharges the air and makes the air molecules sticky, for lack of a better term. It will attach to viruses in the room, both coronavirus or any other for that matter, as well as dust. It makes it heavy and it falls to the floor and then is swept up at the end of the day. After each school day, our custodial staff come into each classroom and they have disinfecting backpacks and wipes, and they will spray down the entire classroom and then wipe the disinfectant up. The disinfectant has about a 4 to 8 minute kill time, I believe. They wipe those in all high-touch surfaces on a daily basis.
The next question, if students and teachers are in the classroom and the student needs help with something, can the teachers help them, or will the teachers stay at their desk at all times?
Again, there's a balance, and teachers will establish what those class norms are going to be. The challenge that, as I've stated, that districts across the area have faced with this type of learning situation is trying not to diminish the learning of either group. So in some cases, there'll be an opportunity where they can help. In other cases, there may be an opportunity where they will need to continue to try to help that student over the computer. So it's going to vary on a case-by-case basis. But that is definitely one of the challenges with synchronous learning, is trying to balance and make sure that both remote learners and in-person learners are receiving the same level of attention.
This is a three-part question. Who sets the percentage numbers? And I believe this is about the return rate. Second part is, why was the district following Northwestern's numbers?
So the Department of Public Health establishes those rates through their calculations. We were using the northwestern.edu site as the standard benchmark that districts across the area are continue to use as the kind of the gold standard of positivity rates in the area.
And then last part of the same question, since the vaccine availability is increasing, will the teachers be vaccinated, or will they still have the option to stay remote?
So the availability is in the area. Our teachers are desperately trying to get vaccines. We continue to mail out appointment openings when we hear of them. And we have a number of staff who have been vaccinated. We still have many more that are still trying to get appointments. And so, you know, as more and more vaccine is available, there may be an opportunity for more teachers to return.
The next question, will new teachers be hired to replace those who refuse to come into class?
No, this is the solution we came up with as a committee that allows teachers to continue to teach, and it would be rather, you know, parents indicated that this late in the game they do not want their teachers to change, and so that would be a counter to what we were trying to do, and it was causing the least amount of disruption.
The next question wants to clarify if there will be temperature checks for students.
Yes, as it stands today, there will be a second, the temperature check you'll take it home, but there will be a second temperature check along with the checking to make sure their COVID symptom screener was completed when they come into the building.
This just states confusion. I believe the question is, when will 8th graders have the option to come back to school in person?
So this plan was open to K through 8th grade. So April 6th will be open for any student in kindergarten through 8th grade to return to campus for online learning.
This is just a clarification, and this is a correct statement. If you choose remote, your child's schedule, if you choose remote, your child's schedule will not change. If you choose in-person learning, your child's schedule will change to academics in the AM if they were in PM.
For kindergarten through 5th grade only.
Correct. So this was similar to what was just mentioned. The question is, are schedules going to be the same? Next, can you please go over the child's schedule? How can we change a child from PM to AM? Where would we find the possible child schedule? So it seems to me the last four are, additional confusion regarding the schedule. So Dr. Whalen, maybe if we can revisit that one more time.
Certainly. Let me bring up the schedule as a visual as well.
And as Dr. Whalen is doing that, another question came in, is the online on-site learning option start on April 6th? And the answer is yes.
So I went back to the K-5 remote learning schedule. So for K-5 remote learners, this is exactly as it is today. I'm just going to pick a teacher's name at random and just say Miss Smith. So if students, as of today, receive their core instruction, meaning they're getting English, language arts, math, maybe some science and social studies thrown in there for Miss Smith in the morning. On April 6th, the same will happen for those learners when they log in. There'll be no difference for them. In the afternoon, those learners will be with their specials teachers, art, music, PE, and they may receive some additional supportive services from one of our interventionists. On the flip side, if a student has been with Ms. Smith since the very beginning of the year, and in the morning they receive their specials instruction, that will continue also. In the afternoon, then they would log in and they'll get their core instruction, math, ELA, a little bit of social studies, perhaps science, whatever is on the agenda for the day. They will receive that instruction in the afternoon. So there's absolutely no change. If you elect remote learning, no change to the schedule. That's our goal. Now, I can't guarantee that one or two students may not be asked to move. The principals may have to do that if we have to do some load balancing of the classes, depending on demand for the on-site online learning. I'm going to back up just one step for for students who elect to be on-site online learning, still using the same example of Ms. Smith, if you will. Ms. Smith, for this example, let's say Ms. Smith is actually on-site. She will be at her desk teaching all the learners through her computer, and those that are on-site online learners will be at their desks learning with their headsets on, just as those who are at home at the same time. And they will receive their core instruction. Then they'll be dismissed at 10:20. They'll get their lunch and breakfast for the next day, and then they will log back on with their specials in the afternoon. So the only schedule change that could occur under this option is if your child is learning from Miss Smith in the afternoon, math and reading and some social studies, they will start learning that. They will switch over and be with Miss Smith in the morning instead of the afternoon. That would be the only schedule change in this particular option. For 6th and 7th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders rather, there is no schedule change. It's just a location change for them. Their schedule will stay the same. They will continue to receive instruction in their block periods, just as it's been laid out since August. The only difference being where they're studying from. So remote learners will be studying from home, and our online on-site learners, get to the right slide, will be at school. So they'll be at school with their placed in their homeroom class. If their homeroom teacher is on site, if their homeroom teacher is not on site, then they will be clustered with other students in their grade level and supervised in a common space or a common area. So I realize it's very confusing. I hope the explanation helps.
Dr. Whalen, we do have some additional questions that don't have to do with scheduling. Two more. The FFCRA exemption ends March 31st, correct? Does this mean all teachers will be required to return regardless of their situation?
No, not necessarily, because it's actually, this exemption is a board option. It's currently not required by our, under the law. And so if the board continues the exemption, then that would continue as well.
And another question is will we go back to a normal school year come August?
Well, I think that largely depends on how we as a society recover from this pandemic. I think we have to follow our scientists and make sure we continue to do what they recommend by wearing masks when we're out in public and being careful. I would, in my heart, I hope we're back to a normal fall, but I don't know what the fall will look like. I would imagine that we will have some sort of remote component we will offer to parents in the fall, but we would like the majority of our learning to be happening in person. So that's just my wish list. I have no idea what will happen in the future, unfortunately, but I hope that's where we are.
Dr. Whalen, a parent is questioning if students have medical conditions, is it safe to return? So I think the question is, in your opinion, is it safe to return to school if their student has a medical condition?
Well, we're taking all the precautions and steps outlined by IDPH, making sure the areas are sanitized and cleaned. Individuals will be wearing masks. I think it comes down to the parents. The parent just has to decide if they feel comfortable, given the child's condition, sending them back. I believe we've taken all the steps to make sure that it is safe, but I think that's a very personal decision you'll have to make, knowing what specific condition your child has.
Dr. Whalen, those are all the questions from the chat. There are no new questions coming in at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Will the presentation be available to download? Yes, it will be posted.
So we'll post it on our website, and it'll be downloadable with our other, it'll be found in the district website under the parent resource page.
There's a comment as a reminder from a parent. It's also important to continue to take precautions outside of the school. Now there's a few more questions coming in, Dr. Whalen.
Okay.
So with the on-site learning, it means students will have to attend school 5 days, 7:50 to 10:20, come home and log in at 10:20 to continue their learning. And that is correct.
If they elect the on-site learning, it's not required that they attend on-site learning. But if you choose, that is correct.
Yes. There's a thank you, and then a question if students will continue to have PE.
They will. Specials will continue to be delivered remotely as they have been, both for all grade levels, K through 8th grade.
Another thank you, and stating it was a helpful meeting, and questioning when they will have the option to sign into the form.
I appreciate that question. That's a great segue. I'm going to post the link right now, and we will remain online for a few minutes if you want to actually go in and complete the survey now. And if you had any difficulty and want to come back and ask a few questions, you're welcome to do that. This should take you to the survey. We do ask that you complete the survey, one survey for each student. It's set up that way so that we can quickly sort the data and be able to provide you with the answers that you've requested regarding scheduling and so forth as soon as possible. So we'll hang on here. Thank you again. I can't say often enough how much I appreciate your support in helping our teachers this year through what was an incredible and extremely challenging year. And we've got a few more months to go. And I am optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic about the availability of vaccines. But I think, as a few of our viewers have also noted, that we all need to continue to follow safe practices and we'll see the light at the tunnel very soon. So again, we'll be here for any questions after you complete the survey, but thank you for joining us this evening. Please let your friends and neighbors know that the survey is available. We'll be sending it out as a blast as well. Again, we will be posting this recording later this evening on our website.